Okay. I decided, since we're starting the book of Bamidbar, to give you a little bit of an overview of one theme that's in the book of Bamidbar and what the book of Bamidbar is trying to teach us. At this point in the Torah, we have finished the first 3 books of the Torah. First 3 books of the Torah have told us everything that a Jew needs to know in order to be a good Jew. Everything in which the Jewish people are destined to become. However, it's all in theory, and we didn't see much practice yet. The book of Sefer Bamidbar is watching the Jewish people take the theory that Hashem gave them from our Sinai and to put it into practice. And we'll see how well they did or how well they didn't do. And this becomes the theme, one of the themes of the book of Bamidbar. So let's just take a quick look at a couple of the stories, very briefly, and see what common theme we can find in all these areas over here. Let's look at the third source for a minute. This is in Parshas Bahalosecha. The Jewish people were complaining. It says, Vayishva Moshe sa'am bocha l'mishpachosav. Moshe hears the people are crying, each one to their family. Ish lepesach. Maybe someone close the door. Thank you. Ish lepesach oholo. Each person to the entrance of their tent. Vayicharaf Hashem ma'od v'eine Moshe rab. And Hashem was very upset, and this was bad in Moshe's eyes. So what was the problem over here? Ostensibly, the Jewish people were saying they didn't want any more mun. They didn't want mun. They wanted quail. They wanted a little variety in their lives. However, Rashi brings down from Chazal in the next source, because of the word that says lemishpachosav, for their families. So what does that have to do with their families? They don't have to cry to their families. So the rabbis explain that it means that the Jews were now prohibited in certain forbidden relationships. Before the Torah is given, brother could marry sister, close relatives could marry each other. Once the Torah said that they could not be married to each other, they were upset about it. And they were very happy with the past, quote-unquote, immoral lifestyle. And the Jews were complaining that they would have to give up that immoral lifestyle that they were living. That's Chazal. So when you look at such a Chazal, you kind of wonder, you say, where in the world did the rabbis come up with this idea? The Jewish people are complaining about the mun. The Jewish people are saying, you can't have the same mun all the time. And Chazal are saying, way, way beyond that. They're saying that wasn't the real problem. The real problem was an issue of immorality. Okay, you can say that there's a word over there, it says lemishpachosav, they were complaining to their families, so it has to do something about families. That's maybe just a hint in the pasuk. But to take something from one extreme and take to the other extreme, where do the rabbis have the license to make such a limud, such a way of learning the pasuk that would not seem to be the simple meaning of the text? Then we move on to the next parsha, and the 5th source, the Zohar tells us, the 5th parsha is the story of the Meraglim, the story of the spies. Again, the spies say that the land is too difficult for us to conquer. The people are discouraged, they're afraid, they don't think they can win the battle. So the Zohar, which always goes to the depth of every issue, when it discusses who the spies were, and it says they were all men. So what does the Zohar say in the 5th source? He says they were all tzaddikim and leaders of the Jewish people. However, they chose for themselves bad advice. Why did they choose this advice? So they said the following: if the Jewish people enter the land of Israel, we'll be removed from our leadership roles. They were princes. We're going to go there and show we're not such holy people. Moshe is going to appoint different leaders, and we won't merit to be leaders only in the desert. That's it, nowhere else. So Chazal say, Rashi says, since they took this bad advice for themselves, they died. And all who accepted these words, they died. Again, the question comes back again. If you look at the text, it's very clear that the spies felt, listen, this is the report. You could say, perhaps, they lacked emunah in Hashem. There's all kinds of things we could say to ascribe the motives for what they were saying. But where in the world could you see a motive to say that they were afraid they're going to lose their jobs? Again, it's a nice thought, but you have to be a little bit true to the text to come to such a far-reaching, such devious plan behind what they're doing. Where do Chazal get this insight? And let's do another parsha. Let's look in Parshas Korach. Same idea. The 6th source, it says Korach vayikach Korach ben Yisro ben Kos ben Levi v'dasar aviv ben Yehuda ve'on ben Peles ben Reuven. So what's this word of Vayikach? What did Korach take? And again, the story seems to be, Korach says, listen, all the Jewish people are holy. We don't have to have only certain people our leaders. Everyone should have a chance to be a leader. It's a democratic society. We all received the Torah as one. We all heard from Hashem. Let's have a little bit more equality over here. And again, Rashi asks the question, what did Korach find to argue with Moshe? So Rashi says he was jealous of Elitzaphan, the son of Uziel, whom Moshe appointed as the prince of the sons of Kohath by Hashem's word. Korach, who was a great man in his own right, he was upset that he didn't get an appointment. And he was jealous. And really it was motivating the whole thing. Again, the question is, where do Chazal see this from? You could just say he had a political position. He felt everybody deserves to be equal with the leadership. Where do they understand that he was jealous and he didn't have a job? And you find this Keseder, the Shurav Chazal, where the rabbis seem to say something that really doesn't seem to be borne out through the text. So there's many answers to this. I'm going to give you one answer, but from two sides of the coin. I'm going to give you one from the Litvish side of the coin and the Hasidic, because unity, talks, so we have to give everybody equal billing. So I'll say a word from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky in his Sefer Iyunim Bamikra, and also we'll go through a piece, if there's time, for the Piazetzner Rebbe. They basically say the same thing, but from two different sides of the coin. And Rabbi Yaakov bases his word on what he sees in Parshas Lech Lecha. In Parshas, I don't have the source for that. In Parshas Lech Lecha, we have the story where Moshe and Lot were living in Eretz Yisrael. There wasn't enough room for their sheep. So Avram says, listen, we don't have enough room. There's an argument going on between the shepherds. Listen, Lot, pick where you want to go. So the Torah says Lot looks around and he sees to the east. He sees the lush greenery near the Jordan River, and he decides it's going to be good for his cattle. He's going to move over there. So that's where he goes. Rashi over there brings some Chazal and say, why did he want to go there? Now it seems pretty clear why he wanted to go there. There was a lot of pasture land. It was good for his cattle. That's why he wanted to go there. He says, no. What he really wanted to do, he wanted to be in a world full of immorality, which was Sodom. He'd be free from the religiosity of Avram Avinu. And he could be free to do whatever he wanted in a world of immoral people, which is the land of stone. And the proof is, because the next verse says, the people of Sodom were sinners. Again, if you look at the text, that's where Yaakov asked the same question. You could say he went for financial reasons. So why are you saying that he went because he'd be happier to be in a place where there was immorality over there? So Rabbi Yaakov explains like this. He says, we know in the limud of Torah, there are 4 levels of the learning of Torah, which is understood by the acronym Pardes, Pei Reish Dalet Samach, which stands for the 4 levels of Torah learning, Pshat, Remesh, Drush, and Sod. So, and those 4 levels basically mean as follows. You have a text, you look at the simple reading of the text, that's the Pshat. You look in the pasuk, you read the words say, Lot saw the greenery of the land of stone, and he decided to go to stone. That's the Pshat. But then you'll see in the pasuk there's something, maybe one word that's a little bit not exactly fitting into the total theme of the pasuk. It's maybe hinting that there's something else going on over there. So that's a little remez, a little hint. And then if you look a little deeper past the hint leads you to the drush that says, no, there's really altogether something else, or something else in addition to what was going on. Another layer. And then finally, if I go to the level of soul that gives us all the psychological reasons, the deepest reasons that we weren't aware of when we were at the surface. It's no different than peeling off the layers of an onion. You look at an onion, and on the outside of the onion, you get this brown, crusty piece. It's not so great. And then you peel off the second one. It's a little better. The third is better. You go all the way, until you get to the core over there. You might see the root of the whole thing. That's the way Torah is. But then he says like this. He says that the same thing that is true about Torah is the same thing about human beings. There's a pardes to human beings. Human beings seem to behave in a certain way. You look at what a human being does, that seems to be the pshat. But then if you're careful to hear what they're exactly saying, or if you're watching exactly what they're doing in one situation and doing a little different in another situation, there's a little remez, a little hint that maybe there's something else going on. And when you dig a little deeper, you find it could be totally a whole opposite game plan that the person had in mind. And then when you get to the deep and understand what's going on psychologically in the person, that was motivating a behavior that's totally different than what the person is showing. There's a statement that says, you shouldn't believe anything that you hear. I will add, and maybe half of what you see. Even things that you see, seeing isn't good enough. Seeing is just seeing the outer layer of the onion. You're seeing the outer layer of the onion, but the people can show you on the outside, doesn't mean anything. They could be totally, a person can be complimenting somebody and showering praises, well, really they hate their guts. They really hate their guts. And the way they'll make the compliment, oh, you look so adorable this time. This time. So you're ready, this time. It's a little remez, this time. Really, I can't stand you. You know why I can't stand you? Because in high school, 25 years ago, you were the valedictorian and I wasn't. And that destroyed my sense of self. While she's smiling and being all friendly, but you wait for that little hint, this time. And they don't like you at all. And there's a deeper message. And that's really what the Torah is teaching us. And the truth of the matter is, the question is, so why does the Torah write itself that way? If indeed, as the Chazal are saying, that Lot really wanted to be involved in immorality, so say it straight out. Like it seems we start from the Pshat, and then we go from the Remez, and then to the Drush, and then to the Sod. It takes so long till we get to the bottom of the story. Hashem, make it easy. Just tell us straight in front that Lavan really cared to be immoral. He went there for immorality and was only faking everybody to make it look like he was going for finance. The answer is, Hashem is teaching us how to be our own psychologists. Hashem is teaching us how to deal with people, because the Torah parallels exactly how Hashem created the world. If you want to learn how to analyze people, how to analyze situations, how to have relationships with people, that's the way God created people. Or rather, that's the way people behave. And therefore, when somebody says something or does something, more often than that, that's not really what's going on. And therefore, you got to be carefully looking for little tips. And we're not talking, to protect yourself or anything like that. Sometimes it's just to become more sensitive to what the person is going through. When a person is sad and he's saying, "How is anything the matter?" I'm fine, And no, that's just a pshat. So I can already see, we're sulking before I came in, there was a remez over there. Now I got to look for the drush. I got to see what's really going on. And then I got to see what's really motivating your unhappiness. And that's why Hashem always writes the Torah in a way that it's so hard. You got to work hard to get to the bottom of what was really going on. And the more you learn Torah, the more you do this, then when you'll meet people, you'll know to look at them the same way, and to get to the bottom of what has to be getting down to. And really, this is the most amazing way to develop proper relationships. So really, we could say that the Torah is what we could call case studies in human behavior. Case studies in human psychology. You don't have to go to psychology books to know about Jewish human behavior. It's all in the Torah. You just need the right professor to teach you the Torah. You need the right rabbi to teach you the Torah. Everything you need to know in psychology and human dynamics is in the Torah. And just like there are 600,000 Jews, and just like that received the Torah at Sinai, 600,000 root souls, and just like there's 600,000 letters in the Torah, so each Jew corresponds to a letter in the Torah. So just as we're learning the Torah, and we have to dig deep to understand what the real message is and what's really going on, that's how it has to be with human beings at all. And therefore, if we look at the story of Lot, Lot says he's going for a parnasa. Let's try to give more of a contemporary example. Let's say somebody's living in a very, very frum part of the world. Let's say he's living in Skver. Okay? That's a pretty frum place, right? He's living in Skver. He's making a nice parnasa. He's doing okay. One day he turns to everyone in Skver and says, I got a new job. I'm moving to Las Vegas, right on the strip. Right on the hotel strip over there. And he's going to tell everybody, I'm going there because I need to make better parnos. Okay, so right away, you look at that pshat and say, what's wrong with this guy? The guy's doing okay. He's a Hasidic guy. He's in Skver. He's fitting in. I see he's paying all the bills. He lives in a nice house in Skver. He had his job. He's got all this. What's he going over there for? So obviously, there's something beneath the surface over here. So when Chazal look at what Lot is saying, look at the context and what Lot is speaking. Now, Lot, who are you separating yourself from? You are separating yourself from the greatest human being who walked on planet Earth, number one. The greatest human being in the world was Adam. Number two, Lot, how did you become so wealthy? You became so wealthy when Avram left and you tagged along with him and went down to Mitzrayim and you saw the miracles that Hashem did to save Sarah. And by him being rich, you got rich. And don't you realize that Avram is the goose that lays the golden eggs for you? How in the world, why would you ever want to leave such a person? And you're contending you can't make Parnasa next to Avram. He's the whole one that gave you the Parnasa. So the rabbis are saying, you know what? He's lying. And then we have to start looking at what the hints are taking us to. But in the context, you see that pshat doesn't make any sense. And if it says that the people of Sodom were sinners, now we know what's going on. The guy doesn't care about the frum style of Muncie. He feels it's repressive. He wants to have a much freer life, but he tells everybody it's Parnasa. And that's how the rabbis have the license to say this about Lot. Okay. Before we get to explain the rest of the stories here, but I think you get the idea, let's turn the page, and now we'll look at it from another perspective, from that of the Piazetzner Rebbe, Rav Chlanimus Kalman Shapiro, Hashem Yinakum Damav, who was perished in the Holocaust. He wrote a number of books, and one of them is called Tzav Zerus. Tzav Zerus was personal essays he wrote that was reflecting different spiritual lessons that he learned in the course of his life. He writes at the beginning of the book, he says that everybody should make their own personal diary of their spiritual challenges, spiritual insights that they acquired through life. He says that, by the time a person really understands how to live their life properly as a Jew, that's just about when they're going downhill. And they're going to die pretty soon, and they wish they'd have another 70 years to finally live their lives properly. Instead, you die with all that wisdom. So he said it's a good idea to start writing your own memoirs, your spiritual memoirs, your spiritual essays. Talk about what you learned in life in terms of what are the pitfalls of spiritual development, what are the opportunities of spiritual development. Leave this for your children, so when you are long out of this world, but beyond you, the lessons that you finally learned will be that you'll be able to leave for your children as a legacy behind. And there's a number of essays that he wrote over here. So I'd like to take a look at the essay and see as much as we can do over here, and to see how he gets to he's agreeing to everything Rabbi Yaakov is saying, but he's taking it to a much deeper level over here. And I'm using an English translation that does not do it justice, but we'll live with it for now. And if anyone knows that he can get a hold of a copy of the book in Hebrew, it's a much better read when you read it into Hebrew. He says like this, it's on the second page, it's under the words psychotic thinking. He says, why are we so amazed by the fantasy thoughts of a psychotic, wondering how such craziness enters the human mind? Okay, I don't know what the politically correct words are nowadays, so you'll pardon me, but I'm just reading what he says over here. I don't know if he'll get upset if I call him psychotic or something. Years ago, they had a simple words. Now you have to be careful everything how you say. But he says, why are we so amazed when you see a Meshuggah? Why are you so amazed? Oh, wow, he's crazy. Why are we not equally amazed by our own delusions, which are sometimes no less than the psychotics? He's saying we look at real Meshuggahs and we wonder, wow, how could God have created somebody like that? How could a person do that? When we're not amazed at our own selves. Now let's see what he says. This is because each of us has one or several emotional weak points where we still have not matured. Now the English over here says weak points. It really doesn't do justice to the original. The original, he uses a term called Mida Nefula. A Mida Nefula, that literally means a fallen characteristic. A Mida Nefula. Now, in Chassidus, this means the following. Let me spend a minute to digress to explain. It's a very important idea over here. And there's a lot of relevance to the Sirah, because during the Sirah time, we're going through different midos, the seven spheres, the seven characteristics of Chesed through Malchus. So what is a Mida Nefula? Hashem has given each and every one of us, because we have a godly soul, we have, in the image of Hashem, we have the seven midos of Hashem. Kindness, control, compassion, etc., etc. We have, to a lesser degree, this capability, and this brings out the godliness in the human being. For example, Hashem has given us the capability of displaying chesed, kindness. Kindness translates itself, practically speaking, into ava, into love. Now, what are we supposed to do with that meat of love? We're supposed to use this meat of love. Love is an expansive feeling, where you're expanding yourself beyond your borders. How? By giving to others. That's what chesed is. Loving others, expanding yourself. Just like Hashem does that, we're meant to do the same thing too. However, he says the following, and a very interesting idea. Where is this chesed supposed to go? Lots of places. You can start by loving your spouse. You can love your children. You can love the Jewish people. You can love Hashem. You can love Torah. You can love mitzvahs. So many things you could be loving. Now, what happens if you choose not to? What happens if you choose not to? Because I'm not such a loving person. So he says in another essay an incredible thing. He says, the neshama of a Jew, every attribute that you have must express itself. It is dying to express itself. And Hashem gives us guidance in where these midos are supposed to express themselves. And if a person chooses not to express it in the ways that Hashem wants us to express it, it's not like it just doesn't happen. The attribute of chesed still has to come out. You can't hold it in. But if you haven't used chesed and shown it in the place where it belongs, it'll just go in a place where it doesn't belong. And if oversimplifying this, and if the person doesn't really show love to his wife or to his children because he's so busy with everything else, it will surely find itself somewhere else by either loving the Maple Leafs tonight and not coming to a shiur to learn. He loves sports. He may love the attractive secretary. He may love all kinds of things that the Torah tells him not to love. And that's what we call a midah nefula. A midah that has fallen. But it's fallen. The meat is still there. The character is still there. The love, the expansiveness. Yes, you're showing lots of love. But instead of the love going out to helping others, the love is coming in to help yourself. And therefore, it gets yourself in the worst possible place. So if you don't express your midah in the right place, it becomes a midah nefula. The midah, the attribute, must always exist. You can't say, I'm not a very loving kind of guy. It's not so. You have a neshama Elokim. You have to have a loving soul. It's there. You choose not to use it where it should be done, it will always express itself in the wrong place. And that's a midah nefula. And that explains why, certain people, can get hooked on, what do you call those, soap operas, and all, because they have to love something in their lives. So they love this character. They love that character. People, you watch certain movies that tug at one's heart. I'm sure if any of you watch movies, so if you've watched certain movies, a movie where somebody's dying or whatever, and then a well-done movie, you start crying. You ever cry when you watch a movie? You ever cried? You cried 40 years ago when you heard Ali McGraw said, "Love is never having to say you're sorry." Everyone was going out just crying. You know why they were crying? If they were Jewish and they were frozen. Because they weren't crying for the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash once in their life. Because where you're supposed to cry, you're not crying. So where do you cry where you're not supposed to cry? That's the midah nefula. That's the idea of a midah nefula. The midah's got to express itself. But if you don't express itself where it's supposed to be expressed, it gets expressed in the worst places. So, and what's more, says the Rebbe, is that the person doesn't even realize that he has a midah nefula. You have horrific stories, chas v'sholom, where spouses leave other spouses for all kinds of meshugana reasons. You hear crazy stories. A guy leaves his wife to go with the nanny. And you say, what in the world are you going to the nanny for? He says, well, I don't feel any love with my wife. To your wife who's raised your kids, has been married to you for 25 years, and sacrificed everything, you can feel no love. But for the nanny, who just is, is altogether different in so many ways, all of a sudden you love this woman. So this is the problem where it goes in the wrong way. And in Yiddishkeit, how do we correct these problems? You have to remember, Jewish psychology for Jews is different than psychology for Goyim, because Goyim don't have a Jewish soul. And when you would look at such a person, and you go to a psychologist and say, we've got to repress that love that he has for the wrong person. And in Judaism, we would not say this at all, because you cannot repress love. You have to be able to give it. In Judaism, we would say we should rechannel the love where it's supposed to have been to begin with. Rechannel the love where it's supposed to begin with. If a person gets into mishigasim, into self-love, the problem is he has a meat in the fool. He hasn't learned to love anybody. So you channel him, you have him work with people who are underprivileged. Let him show the love in a place where it should be shown. And that's how you correct the person. And that's what, let's continue inside. And that's what he gives a few examples. Where I'm up here, second paragraph, second line. He says, there's some emotional weak points where we still have not matured, such as self-indulgence, temper tantrums, ego pride. These are all areas where he feels, these are all areas that are hinting to certain midos nefulos. Self-indulgence, which is taiva, which is lust, is really an expression of ava nefula. Ava, love that's going in the wrong direction, that's fallen. Temper tantrums is really the attribute of gvura, that's supposed to be self-control, but instead of self-controlling yourself, you're controlling other people. And when other people don't want to be controlled, that's when your temper flares up. And that's why you become jealous of certain people, because you have no self-control and you want what others have. He talks about ego pride. Ego pride is the meat of tiferes that has fallen out of place. Rahman is compassion, and instead of having compassion for others, you have compassion for your own covet, for your own self, and you always want the covet that's beyond which you should have. Whatever it is, each one of us in that area has such irrational thoughts that only a born psychotic could entertain them. But we, sophisticated savants that we are, who become enraged at the slightest affront to our intelligence, are unaware of our own fantasy thoughts and entertain psychotic thinking. The English calls it psychotic thinking. In the Hebrew, he has a much more beautiful term. It's called mishuga lo'oto davar. Mishuga lo'oto davar. He's crazy in this area. This explains how you can have people that are otherwise incredibly successful. The person is a successful businessman or professional, an amazing mother. She can handle everything. She's organized. She's this. She's that. They're amazing. And in one area, you look at them and you say, I can't believe this person's doing this. Is she out of her mind? How could she do such a thing? What's wrong with her? You Rhina Meshuya. Why? Because it's this one character, this one isolated area, which should have been channeled in a certain way. Instead, it wasn't channeled the right way. All of a sudden, it's going in a crazy way. It doesn't belong there. And that's what the Rebbe is saying. Why are we so amazed at real Meshuganim? When we look at ourselves, we should not be any less amazed that we do either self-destructive behavior, certain things that are just crazy. I'm a rabbi. I meet a lot of people. I meet a lot of wonderful people. And a lot of people, Meshugalo to davar. You wonder, how can they do such a thing? But in this area, they didn't develop it properly. And you get surprised. You wonder, this person is a normal person. That's when it's so surprising. When a person, a real Meshugana on 99 Queen Street, and the whole behavior is totally, I know they changed the address, I heard. But anyway, okay, you understand, at least. Wow, it's unusual to see a person just slamming his head against, it's a nebuch, it's a Rahmanis. And it's weird, right? But then when you see a normal person doing something much more sophisticatedly weird, you wonder, where's this coming from? Because it's Meshugalos Atavar. Rabbi Nachman gives a beautiful story, beautiful mashal. He said there was a king and a minister. And the minister comes to the king with some very terrible news. He says, Your Majesty, I need to tell you something, that all the grain has been poisoned in the kingdom. And anybody who eats from the grain becomes crazy. So the king says, how many people have eaten the grain? Your Majesty, everyone in the realm has had the grain, except me and you. So it means everybody's crazy. That's right, Your Majesty. So what are we going to do? The king says, well, we got a problem. Let me think now. On the one hand, sane people cannot rule over crazy people. There's no comparison. You can't. If you're normal, you can't rule over people who are crazy. So I guess the only thing we have to do is we'd have to eat the stuff and be crazy too. We'll be crazy then. Well, that might not be so good either. I said, I have a great idea. Me and you, we're going to eat the grain. But before we eat the grain, we'll put a little C on our foreheads. It stands for crazy. And we'll at least know that we're crazy. That's a deep, deep fort. That's a deep, deep fort Rabbi Nachman is saying. What Rabbi Nachman is saying, it's a tremendous level to know you're crazy. It's a tremendous level to know that you are Meshugal L'Oto Davar. If you know it, then you know where you could start working. The tragedy is most otherwise normal people walk around as a Meshugal L'Oto Davar, and they don't even understand it. Not that they don't understand it, it becomes a philosophy of life. And that's where we get all kinds of problems when people have to get along, get together. You got different types, thousands of different Meshugal L'Oto Davars, and they can't get along. But at least the guy who knows he's nuts, he's ahead of the game. Because he questions himself, doesn't take himself so seriously. You could have a husband who has a mida nafula in chesed, and his chesed is always going in the wrong place. You can have a wife whose mida nafula is in gevura, that instead of being able to have self-control, she tries to control other people, and each one doesn't realize that they have the wrong mida nafula, and it's like fire and oil. They just can't get along with each other, and they both think they're normal. If they both would see the C on their heads, then be able to begin to work things out. And that's what I'm saying. We have to all realize, every one of us, including myself in the womb, God has created us with a mishigas. Our avodah is to correct that mishigas. And how is Hashem going to help us see it? That's why He wants us to learn Sefer Bamidbar. Watch the other mishugoyim as they go through their roles. And maybe that will reflect some of the mishigasim that we have. So let's quickly go through the three stories that we have over here, and we go back, and it becomes very clear what's going on over here. Let's go back to the first story with the manna. They're complaining that there's no manna. Oh, it was so good in Egypt. Don't you remember at the flesh pots by Egypt, and the garlic and the onions and all that stuff that was over there in Egypt? You know, now think about this. Let's think about, was that really so good in Egypt? Let's try to remember exactly. I think there's a reason why we eat matzah on Pesach, because that's all they gave them was matzah, because it was slow to digest. And now what do they have? The Jews have man. You know what man meant? What is the greatest source of all problems in every family? Every family. Parnasa. No? And what's parnasa? Bottom line. Food. Right? Food. Put food on the table. Everything else is trappings, the house. But bottom line, you have to have food. And what do you have? If man comes down, you have no daigas of parnasa. You have no daigas of parnasa. You don't have to worry about anything. You got all the food you could have. It tastes however you want it. Unbelievable things. And you're complaining about it. Well, what's the matter with you? How could you be complaining about that? That's some shot. Some shot to complain about that. It doesn't make sense. It can't make any sense. Well, but what's going on? What's going on? Remember, we talked about this Mida Nafula. Remember what was going on? They were at Har Sinai for a year. They were at Har Sinai for the year. They were next to Hashem. They were loving Hashem. They were close to Hashem. Now they just left from Hashem, and instead of replacing that beautiful love for Hashem, that Mida Nafula, that love had expressed itself somewhere else. And if you're not loving what you're supposed to love, you're not going to love the things you shouldn't, and you love yourself, and you just want to have quail. And that's how the rabbis understood that it wasn't just quail. You want to have immorality. And immorality, we know, is the greatest application of the Mida Nafula of Ava. Love to a wife, to a husband, that's where it's supposed to be. Love to Hashem. But they ran away from Har Sinai, the pasuk says, like children running away. I don't want to love Hashem anymore. So who are you loving? You know who I'm going to love? I want to love the person you say I can't be married to. And that's the Mida Nafula of Av, and that's why the rabbis understood. It's crazy what they're saying. It doesn't make any sense. Mishugalot davar. So it must be there's something deeper to that. Of course, how could they want to be in immorality? Because that Mida of Ava just fell off the wrong place. The spies say that we can't conquer the land of Eretz Yisrael. What's going on over here? How can this be a reasonable complaint? Let's back it up a little. Do you remember what God did in the recent past? 10 plagues, split the sea, doing miraculous things over here. How in the world could they for 1 minute think that they're not going to conquer the land of Eretz Yisrael? It's lunacy. It's Meshugalot Davar. How could you say so? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense the way something else is motivating all this behavior. So what's the thing that's motivating themselves? It's the tiferes, the idea of mercy. The mercy has fallen into the wrong place. People who are used to having mercy are having mercy in the wrong place. You know, why were these people the heads of the Nasim? Why were they the tribal heads? What was their background, these 12 tribal heads? They were the ones who were the Jewish taskmasters who would not beat the Jews in Mitzrayim. They had mercy on the Jews in Mitzrayim, and they got hit for it, and they had a tremendous mercy, and that was fulfilling that mitzvah in such a beautiful way, and that's why they deserved to be a nas. But now that they came out of Mitzrayim, no one's beating them. They had no place to put the mercy in the right place. So what's happened when the mercy falls in the wrong place? Instead of having mercy for somebody else, you have mercy for yourself. Mercy for yourself means you're looking for your own covet. And the only thing that they could say is, we're going to lose our job, and we're going to lose our covet. And that was motivating all the behavior. And they didn't realize that the mean and the fool was there. And that's what Chazal are teaching us. The guy just says, we can't conquer the land. Nonsense! That's not what he means. He means to say, we're afraid we're going to lose our position. We're afraid we're going to lose our covenant. How am I supposed to figure that out, Hashem? You know what? Pay attention. Pay attention. No, 2-3 minutes. Okay, I got to stop. Okay, I got to stop.